Charles C.W. Cooke is the senior writer at National Review. He's also a podcaster in his own right at the Charles C.W. Cooke podcast and a frequent, if not always, participant in the National Review, the editor's podcast. Charles, good to see you. I want to start off the hard news because you're an Oxford guy. Fetching Mrs. Hewitt and I have begun to watch a streaming show called Ludwig, which is set in Cambridge. Not like, it's sort of like Endeavor was set in Oxford. We're getting more Cambridge than I've ever seen before. Have you seen it?
I haven't, but you know I'm from Cambridge. That's my hometown.
Oh, I didn't know that. I did not know
Yeah,
that. Yes, Ludwig is in Cambridge, so you'll have to next time around give me a authenticity check if you've had a chance.
I
It's
will.
very interesting because it's a combination of the regular streaming platform approach of many episodes, but within every episode there is a plot. It's very difficult to
Okay.
do, but they're pulling it off. Let's start with Ambassador Bolton. I've already disclosed I've known him for 20 years. I can't imagine him knowingly having national security documents. I can't imagine the big trapdoor of the Foreign Agents Registration Act getting him, but what do you think?
Well, I will say at the outset that I don't know because I haven't seen the evidence against him. He does seem like somebody who would be careful. This whole area is a massive mess. We've now dealt with three people in a row, now four when we get the details on Ambassador Bolton, who are being looked at for their treatment of classified documents and will be treated differently in consequence. Obviously, Hillary Clinton was the first one. She was let off by James Comey in a manner that really had very little to do with the statute. Then Joe Biden was let off because it was considered that he was too old, the jury wouldn't convict him. Then Donald Trump, well, he was the president, so it's a little bit different. Does he have the power to declassify, yes or no? And then we had Trump v. United States, a Supreme Court case that sort of set that prosecution aside. And now we have Bolton, who is not a president, who's not protected by Trump v. United States. It's more in the Hillary Clinton mold. And the question for me is this retribution? Trump hates Bolton. Is this an unreasonable and unfair use of presidential power, or is there something there, or are they using a theory that's been discredited? It's very, very difficult to know at this stage. But the whole area is just a mess. There's no stability in the law in how we treat classified documents for high-profile figures.
You are completely right. The apples to apples comparison is Sandy Berger, a former national security advisor who went to the National Archives, stuffed the documents down his pants, and walked with a slap on the wrist. But it is a very cloudy area. That's why I don't think it's documents, Charles, but I haven't seen the warrant yet, so it's all speculation, and you're right about one standard. There hasn't been one standard in 15 or 20 years. Let me move on to the Federal Reserve today. What did you think of Jerome Powell's remarks? The market certainly loves them.
Yeah. Yesterday the market went down, and today the market went up. And Jerome Powell has stayed ostensibly independent, and Donald Trump doesn't want him to. I'm in a funny position on this one, Hugh, because I am quite skeptical of the constitutional structure of the Federal Reserve. I don't need to go all the way back to the beginning of the Republic. I don't like the idea that there is this independent organization that sits effectively outside of our structure. At the same time, it works. You know, I'm originally from England, and England adopted the Bank of England model, which is similar to the Federal Reserve in the independence of interest rates being set because of political interference. And I think the confidence you saw in the market today is the product of trust in Powell and trust in his team, and the, I think, correct belief that he's not basing his decisions on short-term political imperatives. That said, I'm just not sure how well that sits in with our system, but it works, and that matters too.
It does work. I've been able to interview Alan Greenspan and Ben Bernanke in the course of this program's life, and I do not like the concentration of market power in the words of one person. What does that ever bother you?
Well, it bothers me, but at the same time, if the president got his way, it would be his word that would be followed. And he has different imperatives than Powell. And I'm not convinced, again, leaving aside the constitutional question, I'm just not convinced that they're more virtuous. I don't think Jay Powell is a saint, but I do think that Jerome Powell, sorry, is a saint, but I do think that he has a much longer term view of the economy than those who are running, well, not personally, but running his party in the midterms in a year and a half.
Charles, the United States took a 10% ownership interest in Intel today in exchange for investment in the faltering chip maker. What do you make of that?
I hate it. I think this is exactly the sort of behavior that conservatives would condemn if it were overseen by a Democratic president. We have a phrase for this, picking winners and losers. There are extreme circumstances in which governments get involved with private companies. Obviously, we saw that to great controversy in 2008. But there's nothing here that justifies this, in my opinion. I don't think there's a national security component that is strong enough. It's not as if Intel has been the victim of some sort of unforeseen circumstances. It's a private company that has not done in recent years as well as other private companies. In the tech sector, certain other big players have moved away from Intel, Apple being the biggest example of that when it abandoned Intel chips to produce its own. I don't think the government is going to help Intel. I don't think Intel is going to help the government. I just dislike this, and I wish the federal government would stay out of it.
Now, Charles, I share that instinct, but I've also floated the idea in the past of passive receipt of every public offering that benefits from American stability and American rule of law, that if you're going to go public in the United States, you're going to give a 1% or 2% share in your equity to the United States, passively managed. What do you think of that?
Well, why? What's your reasoning?
Our debt, our deficit. It's really our debt, but it would also help our deficit. Long term, if we had had 1% of everything that had gone public, we would have lost everything. We wouldn't lose anything because it would just be 1%. But longer term, our debt might shrink. It's sort of a sinking fund.
I could see the argument for it. I'm probably too much of a traditionalist in terms of how government raises revenue. I do think that that would create some perverse incentives. Taxes do as well, of course, but they are more direct. If the government started owning shares in big companies, then it has a stake in those companies. And I just wonder what sort of shenanigans the regulators would get up to, and what they would start considering in the course of their duty that might not have been considered by Congress. I mean, I can see the case for it. I'm skeptical.
Charles, I no longer subscribe to the New York Times, but whenever Shane Goldmacher writes something, I try and get somebody who does to gift me the article, because Shane is a very fine reporter. He wrote the piece this week about Democrats in disarray, having lost 4.5 million voters in just the last 2 years. Today's news is that the Republican National Committee has $84 million cash on hand. The Democrats have $18 million cash on hand. Are Democrats in a death spiral?
Not a permanent death spiral, because we have two political instincts in this country, give or take, and they're going to be expressed through the political system in one way or another. But they're certainly in trouble at the moment. I think this is one of the most interesting stories. If you look at Donald Trump's approval rating, both in general and on the specifics, and at Republicans' approval rating, you wouldn't write home. They're okay, but they're not spectacular. This is not Ronald Reagan in 1984 or Franklin Roosevelt in the 1930s. But what is more interesting than that, if you dig down, is that the Democrats are much, much worse. On every topic, bar a couple, they're just in the basement, and they're not recovering. And I don't know if there is anyone at the moment who can help them to recover. They have what I have described as an autoimmune deficiency. They seem unable to correct themselves from their current position. Now, I don't think Republicans should go out and start buying streamers and balloons, because the way our politics is polarized means they could still have a good midterm election, and they could even win the presidency in 2028. But as a general trend, they are going to have to fix themselves, because if they don't, Republicans by default almost will have a good 10 years.
I agree with that, because primarily of immigration and crime, but the biggest issue is always the economy, and I think the one big beautiful bill will deliver. I would like to talk specifically about Governor Newsom. I have a healthy respect for the California governor's political skill set as sort of a political decathlete for a liberal, a blue jurisdiction, deep blue jurisdiction. He wins the gold. In a light blue jurisdiction, he's still going to medal, even though he makes no sense to me, avoids difficult interviews, won't go in harm's way, and often steps on the rake. What do you think of his chops, Charles Cooke?
Well, I generally think that he's more impressive than some conservatives give him credit for. He looks the part. He comes across okay. I do think California is a millstone around his neck. I'm not sure he's the person to deliver the change I just described. I will say, Hugh, I have been, maybe I'm just not the target audience, I've been absolutely baffled by his behavior on the internet in the last week with the all caps tweets and the endless trolling from his social media team. I don't know what it achieves. I don't think it helps the Democrats get to where they need to be. And insofar as it's an attempt to ape or mock Trump, I don't think it works because Trump, for all of his faults, is sincere. Trump genuinely is that guy. And you can't fake it, as a lot of Republicans will find out when Trump leaves the scene as well. So I'm confused on him. He
I have
has
a
a lot of
theory.
talent, but okay.
My theory is that it's all about raising money in 2025, 2026, and first half of 2027, and whatever it is they're pumping out. And it's silly. His lead social media guy is a kid named Izzy. I just think it's a disaster for 2028, but it's raising him money right now. Good
Right.
explanation? Wild guess?
Well, I think that is a good explanation, but if he wants to be president, then he should be worried by that. I mean, if you remember the example of his fellow Californian Kamala Harris, she did everything right in the first few years to make sure that she got into the conversation. But by the time she became the presidential nominee, what she had done killed her. She just could not escape it. So, I mean, yeah, money's great. You need the momentum, but I'm baffled by what he's doing, and it's made me question my prior, I won't say respect because I dislike him, but my prior grudging admiration for his political ability.
All right, last question is about New York City and Mr. Mamdani. He was on Charlie Kirk's show today. Not Mamdani, but Eric Adams was on Charlie Kirk's show today. I don't know that he can pull this off. He's such a flawed candidate. Is Mamdani going to be the mayor of the country's most important city?
Yeah, he is. New York's not just the country's most important city, it's the capital of the world. It's what London was 100 years ago. It's extremely alarming. He is going to win. The opposition is fractured. The blows are not landing. There is enough populist anger that worked for Trump from the right. This is working from Mamdani from the left. He's going to win the race.
Who would you assume that we're not going to go gently into the night? Mark Levin gave a lecture to my audience this week about this is not, you don't give up New York easily, you fight for it. Of the three alternatives, Cuomo, Adams, and Curtis, who's an old friend of mine, but I just had never thought viable as a candidate, one of them has got to step forward and everyone's got to get behind him. Which one is the most viable? Charles C.W. Cooke.
Eric Adams is. Cuomo is so damaged from so many different perspectives. And Sliwa is a Republican in a city that is very much not Republican. So I think Adams would have the best shot. I don't think he would win, but I think he would have the best chance.
What is the best strategy? Very last question. Is the best strategy to simply outline he's an anti-Semite, he's a communist, and I say that
Mhm.
sincerely, not a Soviet, not a Chinese communist, but a Leninist in terms of theory
Mhm.
and practice. What's the best attack line on him?
I think it's that, but unfortunately, I think there are a lot of people who are going to have to experience his policies firsthand before they believe that. Because from their perspective, obviously not mine, as they're not communists, from their perspective, they just want to try something new. They're willing to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Oh my gosh. I love New York. I loved it when it was
Me
safe and
too.
wonderful in the 90s and the 2000s, but boy, it's going to be rough. Charles C.W. Cooke, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. Follow him on X at Charles C.W. Cooke.